Bangladesh's Hindu voters are caught in a terrifying dilemma amid rising Islamist influence and minority attacks. Reports suggest Jamaat-e-Islami is threatening Hindus, warning they'll be driven out if they don't vote for their candidates. Allegedly, religious extremists even plan to assassinate Hindu candidates. Since Sheikh Hasina's fall in August 2024, over 2,000 communal violence cases were reported, killing 68 people. Hindus, constituting 8% of Bangladesh's population, fear post-election violence and strategic voting to stay safe. Some consider boycotting, others are considering voting strategically. For BNP, perceived as less hostile. The Bangladesh Hindu-Buddhist Christian Unity Council demands security guarantees in light of all this volatility and violence that we are seeing emerge out of Bangladesh. Now, in information coming in light of this, campaigning ends at 7:30 p.m. Intelligence inputs have warned of possible large-scale violence on polling day. Remember, the situation remains tense. In several areas, fear has kept many Hindus reluctant to step out to vote. So this is the latest that we're getting for you right now. Intel sources warning of violence that can be expected on polling day. Campaigning is to end at 7:30 p.m. This is going to be a crucial week, remember, viewers, in light of all the hostility and the volatility that we have seen in Bangladesh. It's finally time for the much-awaited election since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. Under the Yunus regime, we've seen the constant and escalated attacks on minorities in Bangladesh. We've been bringing you reports as well from the ground. Campaigning, now we're given to understand, will end at 7:30 p.m. Intelligence inputs are warning of possible large-scale violence on polling day. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, many of the communities there are planning on how to strategically be able to vote so that they are not the next targets in an increasingly Islamist influence and minority attacks. For more on this, we have Pallavi Ghosh live with us. Pallavi, thank you so much for joining me. What is the situation on ground at the moment?
So the campaigning ends today, technically speaking. So the polling, of course, as we all know, is going to take place on 12th. But there's a sense of discomfort. In fact, I'm going to one of those villages where the Hindus over there have decided to not take part in the vote. There is an intel input. There's also this fear and much of saber-rattling by the Jamaat during their campaigning, where they keep on talking about the fact that you have to vote for us, else you are going to face a certain amount of action. It is this fear factor which has led the minorities, particularly the Hindus, who are very worried that what's going to really happen to them. So the biggest problem for the Election Commission of Bangladesh at this point of time is whether the Hindus, who are up to around 8 to 9% of the country's population, will they really come out and vote? More importantly, it is very important to send out a message that finally when elections are taking place in the country, it's going to be an inclusive voting pattern. So should the minorities stay away, it's going to be very poor for the imaging of the country. But how does one convince the minorities who have been facing death threats? Many of them have lost their loved ones in the last 2.5 to 3 months. I mean, you know, the number goes up to around 20 to 25 Hindus having been killed. So it is going to be a big challenge to ensure and assure that the Hindus and the other minorities come out to cast their vote.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this, Pallavi, of course, of how things unfold going forward. That's something that remains to be seen. And for our viewers, my colleague Pallavi Ghosh has been bringing us all of these updates from ground in Dhaka. Stay tuned for our continuous coverage as the elections near. It's going to be a crucial week.
CNN News 18 is back to cover the big elections of Bangladesh on 12th of February. First of all, the biggest assurance which all the stakeholders will have to give is that there can be reform and development. It's a country which has been brutalized and bruised over the last 1 year.
Fascist phase of 17 years. We don't want the fascism to come back.
we can participate in the institution equally, irrespective of our gender, identity, religion, etc.